question.
Yes?
What's the difference between the Q&A and the chat function?
So the chat function, that's...
I mean, it could be person to person or person to the whole room.
Yeah, the Q&A feature,
I think either work.
It's something that is on display for everyone to see, both panelists and attendees. The chat feature is something where it can be set so that you just send it to other panelists or just send it to a specific person. So the big difference, I think, is in terms of who can see it. Also, for functionality purposes, the way we use things is that the chat feature is more for like technology support, while the Q&A feature is for any case that that a member of the public has any questions. They can ask questions to the Q&A feature. And actually, speaking of the Q&A feature, I see Matt Bondi has an update for John regarding PS59. I don't know if that's something you'd like to discuss during old and new business, but
that would be appropriate for old and new business. My quick answer is it's not a surprise that they've passed the buck.
But yeah, I thought I'd flag that. So
I guess, Brendan, why don't we start, since people have gone to the trouble of being here, and hopefully we have a few more people join us as we.
Yep, we're all ready. The YouTube stream is up and running.
Can we tell if we have many people watching on YouTube, or is that?
It's one of those things. When a YouTube video is live, it shows how many people are watching the video itself. So like 28 watching now, but so there is that. If you're so inclined or so curious.
Okay. And I see, according to the participants, we have 19 participants. So, all right. So, Brendan, I guess, are we ready? Should I get things going, or how do you want to do this?
Ready whenever you are.
Okay. So I'm calling the meeting to order at 6:35 p.m. And this is the September 22nd, 2020 meeting of the Community Board 6 Health and Education Committee. My name is John Keller, and I'm chair of the committee, and joined by my co-chair, vice chair, Abigail Kruzmark. And the meeting is called to order at, as I just said, 6:35. And we are joined by the indispensable community associate, Brendan Berth. I added indispensable to the script. I hope that's okay. Members of the public, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. If there is time following the committee's discussion, we'll field questions from the public, and I'm aware that we have some new members of the committee with us tonight, so we'll certainly be speaking with them during old and new business. Unfortunately, no one volunteered to take minutes in advance of tonight's meeting, and is there a committee member who would volunteer to take minutes? If you could raise your hand through Zoom, or just say, hey, I'll do it, that would be much appreciated. Hey, thanks, Phil. I really appreciate it. Philip Napolitano has generously volunteered to take minutes. Thank you. And so now we'll take attendance by roll call. Brendan, could you conduct the roll call?
Committee members, I will call your name and you will unmute yourselves. When your name is called, please say present. I will announce if there is quorum. John Keller,
Present.
Abigail Cruzmark,
Present.
Azia Badi,
Present.
Elvie Barosa,
Present.
Dan Devine, Rich Mintz, Rich, Philip Napolitano,
Present.
Seema Shah,
Present.
okay, Sean Sherman,
Present.
Madeline Sims, Andrew Sharash,
Present.
see.
Sorry.
all good, Claudia Winfield,
Present.
and Neil Barclay.
Present.
Okay, there is quorum.
Okay, the agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and appears on the screen ahead of you. If there is no objection, we'll adopt the agenda as stated. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, you may raise your hand through Zoom, and I'm aware there are some things that will be raised in old and new business. Seeing no objection, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, we're going to have a few ground rules as we have in all of our Community Board 6 committee meetings. No one can speak until granted the floor. We're a relatively small group, so hopefully that will not be too complex. Committee members, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, raise your hand through Zoom. If you click the participants icon, the participant panel should appear and you should find the raise your hand function there. If you still have a technical difficulty, you may click the chat icon and relay your difficulty. The chat function should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. When the committee member is given the floor to speak, I will identify you and you could unmute yourself so that you could speak, and I'll certainly pay attention to waving hands too, since we have a relatively small number of people here. We are required by executive order to create a verbatim transcript of the meeting. So please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. Anything that needs to be clarified there? Okay, good. So the first item on the agenda is an update on school reopenings, which is a major topic around the city right now. And I actually will be totally candid and say that I reached out to try to get someone here from Central or the Family and Community Empowerment, and did not succeed in doing that. But what I do have is the presentation that was made this afternoon by the Office of Family and Community Empowerment, and which I will, Brendan, I sent you a deck that if we could start getting slides on this up. I don't think all of this was meant to be, this was distributed to many people. And so therefore, you know, it is the deck itself, the face deck is certainly not a confidential document. What I'd like to do, so we'd like to start with the next slide, which is important upcoming dates and announcements. Okay. And if you want to, on the next slide, the ultimate responsibility for everything that's been going on, resides in the on the lap, the desk. The buck stops at the desk of the mayor and the chancellor on all of this. And the chancellor is having town halls with each community education council, and there is one coming up for District 2 in December. If you want to go to attend an earlier one of them, you could go to the District 4 town hall, which is November 5th. That's District 4 is in Harlem, and there's one tomorrow at District 30 in Queens with the chancellor. But the one that would be most relevant to people on this call and in our district would be with the Community Education Council for District 2, which is why I've circled it. And I've also provided there a link to the CECD2 website where you can get more information on that. Next, if we do the next slide. The next opportunity for people to express their opinions and views on how the reopening of schools has been handled would be at the Panel for Educational Policy, which is actually meeting a week from tomorrow night on September 30th at 6 o'clock. And I've included here, Brendan, if we make this deck available for people, these links all work. But you could go to this meeting, sign up, comment publicly to the leaders of the Panel for Educational Policy. The chancellor will be there, and express your opinions. And just a little bit of a hint on these meetings, how they work. You can go in and you can sign up, from 5:30 to 6:15. Then there's a lot of bureaucratic stuff that PEP does for the next 45 minutes or so. So you could, make family dinner or something and then come back and still have a chance to speak, just if you go to it. You are allowed 2 minutes to speak during the public comment periods, and I know that there's a lot of interest in attending these meetings. They've gotten actually pretty good at running these meetings online. So I would strongly encourage, especially people who are listening in on YouTube, to attend this. And we will post this deck after the meeting on our website, and you can follow these links to get to this meeting. Next slide. Ben Kalos, our council member for CD5, Council District 5, has taken a lot of leadership on school-related issues, and he has a petition that he has put out that I personally just signed this afternoon on reopening schools and encouraging the mayor to safely reopen our schools. And there is a very long link down there that you can find if you wish to click on it and sign the petition. Full disclosure, Ben is also running for Manhattan Borough President, so we're not endorsing or unendorsing that run by publishing this document. The important message is that that the UFT's pressure on the mayor be reinforced, and that we get around to really safely reopening schools, which is what we'll be talking about. And I encourage you to support Ben, Councilmember Kalos's petition. Next slide. The rest of this deck is taken from a presentation that was literally made this afternoon by the Department of Education's Department of Family and Community Empowerment. This is what they're saying as of today about the school reopening. So if we go to the next slide. They really are aware of the issues of, that many people, especially homeless kids and people in temporary housing, are having with technology. So the first thing they point out is that they are trying their best to provide technical supports. They shared a sneak preview of the school reopening family guide this afternoon, and I thought, since they didn't see fit to attend our meeting, that I would share that sneak preview with all of you. So if you could follow the link to this, it's quite an extensive guide to reopening of the schools that the DOE is providing, and what they regard as helpful tips to families. And so you're getting a preview of it a couple of weeks before it's actually made public. There's also a new online parent organizing resource called Inside Schools Plus. It's designed by a team at Inside Schools for New York City families. It's free to join. It's friendly, tailored to families. And you can find discussion groups around shared interests. And once again, there's a real live link down there when you get the document to actually going and seeing what is there. We can go to the next slide. There's been a lot of concern, and I know this is something on Councilmember Kalos's mind and others, about child care and child enrichment. One of the things, and if I'm saying something that's obvious to everyone, but those of us involved in this know that once they decided to go to the blended model, they quickly discovered that that having some students in and other students not in meant that you could only have about, kids in school 1 or 2 days a week in some cases. So that leads to the question of how do you provide enrichment activities and childcare on days when a kid is scheduled for remote learning, but mom and dad, or mom and mom, or dad and dad still have to go to work. And so they're trying to address this, especially for children of essential workers and teachers and program staff. And here is a link where, once again, this is a live link that when this is distributed, you can find. This is one of the biggest issues that we're finding as they try to reopen schools, that not every one, I think there was a thought, we could, have kids come in, and open the buildings. But they soon realized that if you have to have 65 square feet of space for each kid, that the number of kids that you could actually have in the building is extremely limited. That's this is one of the things they're trying to address here. If we go to the next slide, they're really, I guess, one of the things I'll say here, having spoken with a lot of people involved in this in the last week, is that the people, on the ground, a principal of a school or a guidance counselor in a school, is deeply, deeply engaged, deeply, deeply concerned about doing this right. And it's also, I think, fair to say, though they won't be quoted on this, for reasons that people perhaps are aware, that they are very disappointed in the lack of leadership and the lack of support that they have received. So one of the things I want us to do as a committee is follow up on a suggestion that was made by Ben Kalos during our full board meeting last week, our last full board meeting. I've got, speaking of kids, I've got them in the background here, excuse me. And that is, once schools actually open, I want to do a survey among principals of schools in our zone and try to get as much feedback as we can as to how the reopening went and what their views on it are, and share that as broadly as we can. But since the schools are not yet open, and won't be open until at least next week, there's really no point. And they're all working. These people are working 14-hour days just trying to get their schools open and ready for kids. I've never seen a group of people, at the on the ground level more committed to trying to make something work, against all odds when they haven't received the necessary support to do so. So they're going to have what's called a situation room, which is, and I am going to have to mute myself here. Two teenagers. So they're going to have a live room available for principals to contact and speak with health professionals and DOE leadership related to, student absences due to COVID. Kids get sent home during the day and because they're running a temperature or not feeling well. When a staff or faculty member is absent and they think COVID might be involved, or if it's just sent home during the day due to illness self-reported to the school. So this will be available to all schools and all programs that are located in DOE buildings, including charter schools, early childhood schools, D75 and programs. So, the concern, the level of concern at the principal level and at the staff level and at the assistant principal level to make this work is really quite impressive. Okay, let's go on to the next one. And then this is the revised opening schedule, and just as of today, pre-K and 3K will be open on Monday. All grades of District 75, which is special education, will be open on Monday. And kids enrolled in elementary schools, K-5 and K-8, including kids that are in 6-8 and K-8 schools, they won't open until a week from 2 weeks from today, I guess, a week from today, actually, the 29th. And students enrolled in middle schools and high schools and secondary schools for in-person learning will be next week on the 1st of October. And then everybody else with different types of grade configurations, there are some schools that overlap different grades, will all be done next Tuesday. So, we'll just have to wait and see how this all goes next week. Hopefully we'll have had a good experience today with the 3K and pre-K and District 75 kids who started back today. And the next slide, they are ready to go with the buses. This was a big concern, as you probably know, that they wouldn't have the buses ready and the bus drivers and the people who look out for the kids. I don't like the term matrons, but the people who look out for the kids on the buses. And once again, they're going to instruct parents to go into your child's New York City schools account, and I have that on the next page, how someone can open that if they get a copy of this presentation. And there's a direct link here to how you would contact any any parent who is concerned, guardian who is concerned about busing or other transportation related issues. There's a link here and also a phone number that presumably will get answered. Meals in schools. When I was on the Community Education Council, the most difficult meeting we had emotionally for me, and excuse me, every year was when we would have the people from school nutrition come. And you became aware of how many kids in our city, the only hot meal they get a day, the only real meal they get a day is the meal they get at school. And when you think about it, and you come from a fortunate background such as those of us on this screen do, it brings tears to your eyes when you realize the kids rely on the schools for food. And so that's, we're definitely going to be continuing that. And one of the great things that happened in the last couple of years, when I was on the CEC, though many other CECs were involved in making this happen, was that breakfast is available for kids to bring into the classroom when they're there. And we've removed the stigma of having to say I'm here for free lunch. Everybody just goes and gets a meal under the same conditions. And we can even find the menu for September and October if you wish. And there's an app, all of which is available here. And once again, the people who are actually doing this, actually making this happen in the schools, are extraordinarily concerned about the well-being of the kids that are coming into their buildings every day. There's a lot of reason to be mad about how this was done at a senior level, at the central level, but there's no grounds to be mad at how, from what I can see, the people who actually are running our schools are handling this. And one more slide. Health screening, first of all, how do you set your NY Schools account? If parents or any parents and guardians listening to this are not aware of it, they will be able to go to this link here and set up their account, NYC Schools account. And health screenings and COVID testing, they're still working on the details of this, will be an important element of the health and safety protocols implemented to protect schools, students, and keep staff safe. And there's a schedule, and I have a link here for it, of the daily health screening that schools will begin to implement this week. And then I also have the link for further information about DOE health and safety protocols for blended learning that will be in place. So what I've just shown you is, this is the most recent. This was literally presented this afternoon by the Office of Family and Community Empowerment to all CECs across the city. And this is the most up-to-date information that we have on school openings. And any questions that, don't shoot the messenger, any questions that I can answer, and I know Claude has a lot of experience with this, so any questions that any of us can answer or would like me to raise to people, we can move it. I'd just like to open the floor, first of all, to members of the committee. Yeah, hi, Azia.
Hi, thanks, John. That was really thorough. I appreciate sort of going through all the different aspects of it. I just wanted to mention my daughter, we chose hybrid option, but the model her school chose had it that we're doing remote academic learning 8:30 to 12:30 in the morning. And given that, and then going in once a week for a couple hours in the afternoon for the in-person aspect. So this delay in in-person learning did not delay them starting the school. And I think there are other models. I mean, LV, I think TAG is doing the same thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, let's have an open discussion here. We're a small group, so I'm happy to just let people speak. LV, do you want to talk to Azia's question?
Yeah, TAG is doing the same thing.
Yeah, my kids have already, I mean, they're already in class. I mean, they're already taking, calculus that I can't understand. I mean, so, so I mean, if you're in, so the remote part, and I think that some of the remote, this is where I want to get feedback from the principals, but I think they learned a lot of lessons last year on how to do and not do remote without identifying the schools. I think one of my kids' schools did a much better job of the remote learning than the other. But any other comments or questions or thoughts that from people who are here? Claude, I'm going to I'm just based on your,
Don't volunteer me.
yeah, your years of experience. I mean,
Yeah, but that's old experience. That's not this stuff.
That's
Yeah.
not this.
okay, fair enough. One gets the impression though that people with your kind of good old experience might well have been consulted over the last few months, and we might have ended up in a better place. That's just
You can ask it. If I can answer, I'll answer. But it's old experience. It's not anything that's current that's going on in the schools now.
yeah. But my impression is that, and this would be something I'd ask. I mean, the principals and the assistant principals and the teachers, you know, feel this responsibility deeply, and you know,
Well, absolutely, because they're aware of the school conditions
yeah.
without any pandemic. And so
Yeah.
they're concerned about the Board of Ed actually correcting some of these situations. I mean, we're not even talking about the water and the fountains and all of those other things. Some schools have very narrow hallways, you know, so even movement about the schools is difficult.
Yeah, one of my kids' schools, the fact they're going to have, each floor is going to have one way. The hallways are so narrow that, you know, if you want to go from north to south, you have to go down a floor, you know, to get.
Right, and so with the social distancing, we're not even talking about elementary schools. Some schools have bathrooms in the classroom, but
Yes.
we're not even talking about kids going to the bathroom, et cetera. Things. So yeah, there's a myriad of concerns that the people in the schools would have. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so. I hear you know, I don't always agree with the UFT on everything it says, but the UFT really stepped to the plate here and took the heat and pushed, you know, pushed this with the with Central and with the mayor, and I think Mr. Mulgrew deserves a lot of credit for what he's done.
Yeah, you have to give them credit because there's simple things like which we don't think of very much, but just the windows and the airflow in the buildings. A lot of the old buildings, the windows are nailed shut. You know, those little cords that come down that move the windows up and down. Some of them don't go more than 6 inches when you try to open them. And then there are buildings like Hunter. Hunter, I worked in Hunter. I opened Hunter, and it's built in like a fortress.
Yeah.
So it has these turrets with these little narrow windows on the perimeter classrooms, but the inside classrooms have no windows whatsoever. And the whole time that we were there, you could go across that building and one room would be 30 degrees and the other room would be 70. So, you know, there are all those kind of problems that the staff has to face and deal with, no matter what the central board is saying.
Yeah, and that's why it was the staff through the UFT that, you know, raised this, and why I didn't want to bring a principal in here and put them on the spot and have them have to complain. You know,
Yeah.
they've done it. They've done this through, you know, the right channels. Any other comments or questions? I mean,
Hey, John. This is
yeah. Hey,
Sherman. Maybe I don't know if you said this, but I'm curious. Are there any sort of metrics set out for when they're going to take a pause or something like that, even if it's not at a particular school, like metrics on citywide upticks or something like that?
That's a very good question. As far as I know, there aren't. It was not addressed in the FACE presentation today, but I will ask that question tomorrow, because, you know, how do you, at what point do you say we got to reconsider whether the school could stay open? Is it this number of kids sick or this number of staff members sick? You know, that's one of the many things that they don't seem to have, at least publicly, thought through. Now, maybe they have a, you know, a super secret, you know, plan somewhere where these things are, you know, planned for, but it hasn't been made public. That's a really, really good question that I will ask that tomorrow.
Great, thanks, appreciate it.
Any other comments or questions? I mean, how many folks I know? Azia has a kid in school, and Elvie is, you know, close to kids at school, and I know I've got two actually doing it. How many others on our on the committee here have kids in school right now?
I have grandchildren in school,
That counts.
one in middle school and one at Hunter Elementary.
Oh, wow. A lifer at Hunter, that's pretty good.
Hunter is in a lot of disarray.
Is it? Yeah, that's a subject that's probably an offline subject, but yeah, I agree. Anyone else want to speak to their experience as a parent or guardian or what they've, I mean, I'm very open to,
John, it appears that some of the attendees look like they're from one of our local, I see somebody from PS 116. I'm curious if you want to.
Yes, let's do it. Yeah, Brendan, how do we engage some of our, thank you, Ozia, thank you. How do we engage some of our participants, unless there are committee members who want to make further comments, how do we engage directly some of our participants, Brendan? How can we do that?
Yeah. So yeah, it looks like Erica Rand Silverman said, "Want to let you know I am on, co-president from PS 116 PTA, in case you had any questions about school opening experience." So I don't know if.
Yeah, sure. What is your, I mean, how is it going so far, or what is your, experience of how you've been communicated with? Anything at all? Can we?
I'll unmute.
Well, that'd be great. Thank you.
That way, if she has anything to say.
No, we'd love to hear it. Thanks.
Let her.
Hey, Erica. I can see you now. There you go.
Can you see me?
Thank you for joining us.
Sorry. It's nice to see you all. So it's been, I know that the PS 116 staff has been working really, really hard to improve on the experience from last school year. And they've done a great job, I think. So, having access to the Zooms is really the most important facet of school working. And the DOE has what they call the Teach Hub, and everything flows through their Teach Hub. And so for many students, you need to go into their system to access the Zooms. And so if their system is down like it was yesterday, it's a complete disaster, total disaster. But when it's working and the links work, then, and we can access the teachers, it's glorious. That's the word I use with the principal and the vice principal. It's absolutely glorious when your kid can get in. When your child, their link isn't working, it's very stressful because they're afraid of what they're missing. And it's really hard to see that, as working parents, you need to get back to your own work, and I'm sure a lot of you.
I have a question. Does PS 116 need additional teachers?
I have been told that the principal has requested additional teachers and has not yet heard back.
And when they bring them on, who's doing the training and bringing them up to
That's
date?
the worry. They were really hesitant to bring on new teachers because who are these new teachers? And they can't vet them at all. And then there was some question about superiority. Once a teacher is brought in, will that displace? I mean, we actually lost teachers. They access teachers.
Wow.
And then you have to apply for more teachers. So it's absurd, really. But yes, we're low staff. We lost our reading specialists, our reading intervention. We lost our science teacher. We had already lost our art teacher the year before. It's really hard to program with community-based organizations like we have in the past because there just isn't enough time in the day to figure out how to fit them in. The teachers are multitasking live and remote. They're multitasking multiple schedules at a time.
Is there any possibility of you bringing back someone like your science teacher?
So our science teacher is still on. So our science teacher for the upper grades is still working as a science teacher.
Okay.
Our science teacher for the lower grades is working as a main classroom teacher. And so hopefully in the future, she would be able to go back to her role as a lower grade science teacher.
Yeah, that's so important. I know one of my kids was inspired by his, science teacher in elementary school. I mean, it was a lifelong impact, and to lose people like that, it's.
Eric,
we'll go ahead, Hazia,
I
please.
was just curious, do you have a sense for how many families chose hybrid versus remote?
It
As
was less, yeah, it was less than half for full remote. When we first started talking with the school about a month or 3 weeks before school started, but then that number started increasing with more remote staying home. And I'm not sure what the current numbers are. They really do change daily. I know we lost hundreds and hundreds of kids.
Yes, that's what I heard today.
Either moving out of the city or moving over to G&T programs because spots opened up, because families moved out, or going into a lot to private schools because people, when they kept moving the school start, people were like, forget it, especially kids who need extra support. They were so late to talk about how they were going to handle kids with IEPs. This news, like the big news, is very frustrating. If you're supportive of public schools and that's something that's important to you, it's devastating. But if you're looking at the microcosm of the kids who have stayed in the system, who have access to the internet, at 116, there's a lot of warm, exciting things happening on a daily basis. But I can't speak, what I'm trying to find out is how many of our kids don't even have. My son said that there are 2 kids who he didn't get to see in the spring. And he thought, and he's 7, he thought it was because they might not have had access. And he told me today, it was so sweet that they were on the calls today. They were on a phone and they had a phone number next to their name and he couldn't see them, but they were in the quote unquote room. And he was really happy about that. So I'm curious to hear from the principal and vice principal. How many kids are having trouble?
Yeah, and I was curious, I know you have a significant homeless student population. So, at the community board, we do put requests in for both your school as well as the homeless population. So if there's anything we can add in or help and support, we'd really appreciate hearing.
Yeah, what I should have done is I should have thought to tell the principal that we were having that you guys were having your meeting today and tried to gather information, but it's a miracle I'm here.
Well, we're still here.
Later, whatever at your convenience, it's fine.
No, several of us are really, really deeply involved in schools. So just let us know. Is there anyone else? First of all, thank you. And Erica, keep in touch, please. Keep in touch.
And feel free to keep in touch with us as well. And thank you for all your support.
Thanks for coming.
Hi, Erica.
Go ahead, Neil. No, this is
hi, Erica. It's Neil Barkley. You and we had a chance to chat a few times and exchange a couple emails. If there is anything that comes up with the 116, I'd be happy to, be the contact person to help out.
Neil, yeah, thank you. Thank you for reaching out last year about fundraising for the homeless population. I know we all got lost there in the spring, so very happy to reconnect about that.
Brendan,
for the families in transitional housing, I should say.
Yeah.
More appropriately.
Brendan, is there anyone else who from the public who is trying to speak? Because that's why we're here.
Yeah, I don't see anyone else who had any questions or issues in the Q&A.
Okay, so I have several, takeaways that I took notes there, and we will, anybody else on the committee want to speak who I might have cut off rudely. Okay, I mean, this is obviously not going away, and will be on our agenda in some form next time. I do know that our council members were very fortunate with Keith, with Councilmember Powers and Councilmember Kalos and Councilmember Rivera, and their offices are very responsive. I've spoken to Keith a couple times and been in touch with Ben a couple times actually as well. So I'm regularly in contact with Katie and Councilmember Rivera's office. Okay, so obviously this is a work in progress, and so I think accidentally we planned this meeting just right. So we will just continue to stay on top of it. If there's no objection, I'll move on very quickly to a very quick second item on the agenda. Everyone okay with that? What we're going to do in relation to the preparedness of hospitals in the Community District 6 for COVID-19 is I have had a very good conversation with Councilmember Rivera's office. As you know, Carlina is responsible for the City Council Committee on Hospitals. And everyone rightly is focusing very heavily on the physical health impact of COVID, because that's what it does. But one topic that I know Councilmember Rivera has been interested in, and I'm personally interested in, is the mental health impact of COVID. So we're working with Councilmember Rivera's office to get, and Elvie, any thinking you have on this as someone so familiar in Asia with our hospitals, I'd appreciate, and Seema. But we would like to do, I would really like to do a roundtable of some sort with people, mental health professionals who are close to the impact that this has had on people. And we're going to do that in our October meeting. And I welcome any ideas or suggestions from any members of the committee or public as we move ahead with that. Okay.
We can do a focus group meeting.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I would like to have some parents who are willing to, guardians who are willing to talk, because this is sensitive stuff, usually personally. But certainly have some mental health professionals from one of our hospitals talk about this, because it's the hidden effect, and the more you read about it, you know. And someone gave me a statistic the other day that, you know, like 10% of mortgage people aren't paying their mortgages, you know. And if 10% of people aren't paying their mortgages, that suggests that 20% of people aren't paying their rent, and 30 or 40% aren't paying their credit cards. I mean, this has got to be so stressful for people. Okay. All right. So I think so there seems to be a consensus that that would be a good topic, and I'll move ahead and invite, and I'll contact Elvie and Azia and others as we move ahead on that. And I think I've spoken enough tonight on things that are on my mind that the chair's report is moot here. Other than that, as I said, I think we just accidentally lucked into doing this the right way tonight. And then under old and new business, Azia, did you want to talk briefly about ACS?
Sure. And if you don't mind, John, I can go over a little bit of history of ACS and why it comes out of our committee. Right. So for those of you who aren't as familiar or relatively new to the board, just for background, I'm vice chair, second vice chair of the board. And prior to being second vice chair, when I was elected 3 years ago, I was chair of health and education, this committee for 5 years. And in that time, we became aware of and developed a relationship with the ACS's Children's Center, which is at First Avenue between NYU and Bellevue. It is a 24-hour intake center for children that are being removed from their parents' homes, that the decision has been made, but usually the caseworker makes sure when they're removing children from their homes that they have a foster parent or kin folk who can take that child, because they feel that that's the best way to go. But there are times when the removal happens so quickly, they have not been able to identify kin or a foster parent. So the kids come to what is supposed to be a temporary place. Majority of them come for only 1 to 3 days. Some stay a week. And then there are some that stay quite long, for several weeks, up to 30 days or more. And the children that come there are from newborns all the way to age 21, because they are under ACS's realm at that point. What happens is that these children obviously have not only are coming from difficult situations, they come from situations where there's generational sort of trauma, and ACS has done a really great job working with the families, reducing the number of kids that have to be removed from their home, because they work with the families to help support them so they can be with the children can be with their parents, which is the best answer, but in a better way. So the number of children that are being removed has decreased significantly over time. So there's a smaller portion that do come to the ACS Center, about 2,500 a year. 875 of them are over 14, so about a third. And of that 875, 50 of them are 18 and over. So just for perspective. And many of these kids come from a situation where they're given a lot of freedom in their own home. So when they do come to the ACS Center, they are not, they're not in jail. They're not the ones who did something wrong. And the center does allow them to go out. What happened though, and Claude, I don't remember, it was like 6-7 years ago this all
About
happened.
6 years ago.
Yeah. So what happened, there was an incident where kids were going out late at night, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and they were mugging folks on First Avenue, especially mugging both patients and visitors to the hospitals as well as staff. And so that instigated us actually building a relationship with the center and having them come to the Health and Education Committee on a quarterly basis so that we had a relationship. We could hear from them what they were doing and get a better sense of sort of their programs and their procedures, as well as provide support. Just like we do the district needs statement and budget request, we can incorporate that into it, but we could also inform our elected officials more thoroughly about the needs for the center and to make sure funding was not taken away, or that there's just sort of keeping an eye on them. Over time, they did get funding and sometimes it went away. There were sort of ebbs and flows. And we really, from the center, and I would say like from us, we really pushed and were able successfully to have them get a separate community advisory board, because we felt that they need to have their own CAB that represents the community, not only just the board, CB6, but also the hospitals that are there, the tenants associations and the people living there, so that they do inform the public about what's going on in the center. And it's a way for the community to actually give feedback on what they're doing and express any concerns. So that was implemented about 3 years ago. Since then, somebody from CB6 does go. Rich Mintz has agreed from the health committee to be attending on our behalf in the future. I do think it would be great if somebody else from the committee could join. It is now Zoom, so we can make sure Brendan could send out the invite, the date, once the date's picked, you can just pop in and see. It's very informative. And most recently, I went to the ACS meeting, and what they do is they do a lot of programs that are looking to build empathy with the kids and get a sense of sort of understanding what they do and how that impacts the community. And they really work on restorative justice programming. They've brought in some really great experts in. Along with that, they do some great programming, like, Claude actually is helping them enrich their library. They're doing programs, something called Freedom School, and all these things. That's all written up in the slides that were sent out by Brendan earlier this afternoon. So it's really amazing what kind of programming is available, and they really are trying their best, because the kids may be there only for a few days, but they really want to help support these kids return to their homes, as well as be able to be in a better space and a productive member of society. So which is great. But I do think that having the community board keep an eye on it and be there both as a partner as well as a voice for them, so that we can make sure they do get the funding and support they need, is really important. The CAB actually sits outside of our community advisory board. We go there, and it is actually co-chaired by both the center director, Rebecca Chu, as well as the Manhattan Borough President's Northern Manhattan director. So, we were able to get a CAB that was highly visible, that shows that the Borough of Manhattan really cares about these kids, and it means that the city can make sure that they are supporting those kids in the way they should be supported. And then I think the other pieces I would just say to you, we only hear about 6 to 8 kids still about every year. There is an incident, they do go out. There are kids, they are getting kids that are really, struggling, and they're often getting kids that are more complicated than they were prepared. They were skilled or had the capacity to take care of, and they're working on that. They also sometimes get kids that the parents have actually given them over to ACS because they can't control them. So they're getting really complex kids. And though I will say to you, we only hear about 6 to 10 of them a year. So out of that are over 15, 14 and over, that there is an incident. I think overall, if we look at the big number of 875 kids and we only hear about 10, they're doing really great with 99.5% of the kids that they're doing. It is the less than 1% that we hear about. So it was important for us as a board to make sure we hear about all the 99.5% Hi, Rich. Great. And then one last thing I would just mention, just as information, and you can see it in the slides, they have not had another COVID case since June, which is really great. The kids that are coming in do get tested. They're testing more of them because many of them are coming in with sniffles or coming from outside traveling. So that's been really great. They are fully ready to help these kids learn remotely. If they need to go in for hybrid, they go in. They have plenty of technology, Chromebooks to help support them, as well as staff to help. And through the summer, they did some, they used DOE curriculum to help support the kids so that there wasn't that much of a slide, which I thought was great. Claude, would you like to add anything else?
No, you were very good.
Oh,
Thank you. So I'm happy to answer questions. I would like to say that I think this is, our role as the board is to support them, but also we need to make sure the information that they're giving us goes out to the rest of just not only health and education, but full board. So like John, I did report at executive. I would love it if you could at next full board just mention some of those numbers, because I think people don't understand like how much they're doing, and we need to help build that kind of awareness.
yeah, no,
One last thing I would mention, the precinct works really well with them, to the point they actually have a police radio. So if there are kids that they're concerned about, they're able to radio the precinct to say these kids are going out. And because the precinct already sort of comes for basketball games or does activities there, less so now because of COVID, they know the kids by sight. They know who the kids are. So they're able to be a partner with the precinct, which I think is great too.
yeah, I think what I'd like to do, first of all, thank you. That was thorough, and it also makes me realize that I would like to try to attend. I mean, these meetings are, I'm pretty sure I'm on the distribution list, and I just probably miss it. So if you are, I'm inviting you to nudge me the next time there's a meeting. Okay. All right. Rich has been involved. Rich is here, and let the record show that Rich Mintz is in attendance. Rich, do you want to comment on this? Because I know that Ozzy was mentioning you've been.
I mean, I haven't been as close to it as she has, so I don't think I have anything to add to the report.
Anybody else have comments or questions? We're coming up on an hour, which is our traditional time here as a committee, but this is an important issue, and one that I will frankly admit I have not given the attention to I should have.
I do.
Okay, anybody? Apologize for that. Okay. Okay. If there's is there any further old or new business that people would like to put forward?
John, just to remind you, I saw Matt Bondi wrote something in the Q&A about
thank you. Yes,
the PS9 situation. I don't know if you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the reminder, and I had a note. Matt Bondi wrote a note earlier in the evening that that PS59 still has not been approved to close the street under either of its applications. So it looks like the DOE has passed it off to the DOT. I guess my first reaction to that is I'm not surprised, but let me follow up with Claire and see if we can push this a little bit more.
Which street is that? Which block?
56 between 2nd and 3rd. Right.
Oh, probably because of the bridge.
Well, that's always been in the case of in the past. That's been their argument. Their argument has been that 56th Street is a major feeder. We've been turned down for this. Not 7:30. Well, we didn't start till 6:35, so we got 4 minutes. But in the past, they always insisted that 56th Street was a main feeder, but now they have 56th Street blocked. For 5th Avenue between 5th and Madison, I guess, and so.
You mean blocked? Oh yeah.
Yeah, but for the president.
Yeah.
So it's no longer. I mean, you can't keep that argument up any longer that it's a critical place. So, and I said we had a representative we had from the DOT here, before, and I didn't want to be too hard on them, but because they obviously are victims of the system as well, but pickup and drop off at PS 59 is a tragedy waiting to happen. I mean, it's the buses pull up on the south side of the street and drop off these District 75 kids, many of whom need assistance just to get across the. Old or new business?
Yeah, so on a related note, Erica, over at PS 116 also noted that we requested that 33rd be closed during drop off and pickup, but we haven't heard back from our paperwork request.
Brett, is it possible, John, like maybe we can have the office staff look into both 59 and 116's request with DOT?
Yeah,
yeah, that's something we can do. One thing I will say is at September's joint meeting between the Transportation and the Health and Education Committee, the indication that I had gotten, people who attended that meeting can correct me if I'm wrong. The indication that I had gotten is that DOT just has a backlog of applications and that things are slow to process because of the backlog that they have. But I can still check with DOT.
Because
it's the start of the school year, the start of the in-person school year already.
And then wait for all the finger pointing if God forbid there's an accident, and someone's hurt, So let's make sure we're pushing our side on this, So any other thank you, Brendan, for that observation. Thank you, Rich, and Azia. Thanks for that report. That's helpful, and that I really like that, putting it in perspective. 6 to 10 out of 875 kids. That's good. That's good data.
And we asked them for that data because they didn't realize how important and how helpful that would be for the community to understand.
You kind of just hits you in the face.
They were really great.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else with old or new business? Okay. So I'm going to declare the meeting adjourned at 7:34 p.m. and so we had a 59-minute meeting. Thank you very much.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, guys. Bye.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Right.